Hi everyone, this is Zach with Pretty Presets. We've had a lot of questions in the forum and on some of the Facebook groups about importing your photos into Lightroom and what some of the modules do, what some of the different settings do, and also where your photos end up when you import them. So I figured I would do a quick video today to show you how I import photos and the preferences that I set when I do that. So we're starting out here with our basic library module. I personally don't have my preferences set up such that when I plug in a memory card into my computer, the Lightroom import dialog comes up. But you can do that if you'd like. There is an option to do that right here. I had it checked just to show you where it was. And I can show you what happens when you do that. If I unplug my memory card here and plug it back in, hopefully it bugs out and shows you what it looks like. Or maybe not. So to start, what we do is right down here we click on the import button. And for those of you that are using an older version of Lightroom CC, or perhaps an older version of Lightroom that you've purchased, your import may look a little different. Lightroom did have a different import dialog in one version of Lightroom CC, and it may have made it out there. But this is what it will look like with the most recent version of CC. Over here we have the source, and that's actually where your photos, where you're going to find your memory card. And if you watch, I unplug mine. This is what happens. You see the memory card goes away, but when I plug it back in, it will actually show up as a source. And there it is. This is also where you would go if you have photos on an external hard drive already. You can see I have 1, 2, 3 listed here, and all of my photos are in there. I don't organize my photos as well as some of the other ladies do, but it works for me, and that's the important part. So going back here, we pick the memory card, and that's where you'll see all of your photos show up that are available for import. By default, Lightroom has all of them checked, and for the most part, that can work for a lot of people. But down here are the options to uncheck all or check all. In addition, if you click a single photo and click this button down here, it will show a thumbnail of that photo. Yeah. Down here is another option for how you'd like to sort them. You can sort them by capture time or file name, check state, or media type if you're importing more than just images. And you can also use this slider to increase the size of your thumbnails or decrease them. I know for some people this is actually where the culling process begins, and they can use the thumbnails to decide whether or not they would like to import a photo at all. Up here you have the option to copy them as Adobe's DNG file format, which is a RAW file format, but slightly less than the actual RAW file format. You can copy them from the memory card, you can move them from the memory card, or you can actually add files to the memory card if that's what you'd like to do. I should note that if you click on this button in the lower left hand corner, you actually get a much smaller import dialog. So if you ever see this, just click on this arrow right here and you'll get the full size dialog. Over here in the upper right hand corner will actually show you where they're currently going. We can change that down here in this destination. In fact, I'm going to shrink all these down just to make it easier to see. So in this destination, we have your hard drive, which is where a lot of you are probably importing your photos right now. If you ever see them, if you've never changed the destination, there's a good chance that where your photos are going are into your users, your username, and your pictures directory. There might be a Lightroom folder here, which is where more are going. It's also where the default location is for backups and your catalogs. So we'll get rid of all of this, and I like to write directly to an external hard drive from my memory card. So my destination will be my external hard drive, and because I don't have a top level folder, I just click on my external hard drive, and up here there's an option for creating a folder, and this is where I will create a folder called test import, where I'm going to put some of these photos. So going back up here to file handling, if you don't know what previews are, you should do a little research. I like to do minimal, but I also like to build smart previews when I import my photos. And what that allows me to do, especially working with an external hard drive, is work on photos that seem to be full size. You can make edits to them and do all sorts of modifications to them without your hard drive connected. And then when you plug your hard drive back in, it actually writes the changes to the original photo so that you can export full size and highest resolution. I have previously imported these photos, but I have don't import suspected duplicates checked, because let me show you what happens when you do that. Any photos that you've already imported will show up as gray, and this is a nice way to, if you're doing a lot of sessions and you can't remember what you've imported, this will actually allow you to see that information right here. You can make a backup copy of the files if you want and put them someplace else, and you can add them to a collection, and you can add the collection here, or if you have an existing collection, you can do that. So if we minimize file handling, we can go into file renaming. This is where you have the ability to take the files, and as you can see, mine are all named with an underscore mg underscore file number, and then the raw file extension CR2, which is what Canon's raw files are named. For some people, they like to rename the files. So for example, you can make a custom name, a date and file name, a shoot name, or you can make a custom edit. And for the custom text, for example, this one, I could say engagement session, if I could spell. And as you can see down here, it's going to rename this engagement session 1 of 1. And as I select more photos, it will actually increase that number once I actually import them. You can choose to change the extension if you want. I don't know why you would, but you have the option to do so. So uncheck that, and we'll look at apply during import. This is where you have the option to apply any of the pretty presets, or any presets that you have, but really, why would you use any others, to any of the photos that you import. So if you know, for example, that you've done a studio session where all of your lighting is the same, all of your poses are the same, and the first thing that you want to do is look at something like, let's do the advanced workflow. Here we go, pretty presets workflow. So I want to apply all-in-one clean edits to every photo that I import. I can select that here, and any photo that I bring in, it's going to automatically apply that setting and apply that preset to it, so that I don't have to do that in the future. You can change metadata if you want, and that's something that you actually set up in the preferences ahead of time. And you can also add keywords to your files. If you do a lot of online stuff, this is where you would tag these photos for easier search later down the road. So take that off. I don't generally like to apply preset to my photos beforehand, because I like to look at the photo full size before I figure out what I'm going to do, but this is a good way to do it. So we're going to go down here real quick just so I can show you the last thing, and this down here is also a way that you can change a preset, an import preset, which you can actually create. You can take all of this information and name it the same type of preset, so that when you come back in the next time, you don't have to change renaming file, change the way you handle the file, and things of that nature. So I'm going to show you what happens after we get all of this set up. By default, Lightroom checks them all. I like to come in and uncheck them sometimes, just to also show you that you have the option to do this. If you select a random number of pictures, however many you want, and only want to import these, you only have to check one. So I should note that I am holding down the Command key on a Mac, or the Control key on Windows, and selecting the different ones. You can also hold down Shift, and it will hold down groups of photos. So once you have the photos highlighted that you want to import, you press any of the checkboxes, and they all get checked. You can do the same in reverse and uncheck as many as you want, or you can check them all and say you don't want this one, or this one, you can uncheck those and they'll be taken out of your selection. So we have our file handling set up. We're building smart previews. We're not importing selected duplicates. We're not making a second copy. And I don't generally like to work with collections unless I'm doing weddings, so we'll leave that unchecked. We will rename the files to engagement session and number them. We will, just for this, we will apply the all-in-one clean edit to them, and also our copyright information. So make sure you're updating your copyright information. And we're going to put these into my external hard drive right here into a folder called test import. Once we have all of this set up, we click import and the process begins. Lightroom automatically defaults to current import. Right here you can see where my mouse is, and it will import the photos. We can also see that once we go down here, we can click on the folder called test import, and you will see all of the photos have gone in there. Up here right now you can see it's building my smart previews, and again, this is where I mentioned before that if you build smart previews, you can actually work on a reasonable facsimile of the photo if you disconnect your hard drive. And I'll show you what happens when that occurs once that's finished doing that. You can actually see up here under your histogram where it says original and smart preview. That's actually going to show you that you have a smart preview of the image and can take it with you and edit it on the go. So that's the basics of importing files into Lightroom. I know a lot of folks don't seem to can't quite grasp how that works. And one last thing I will show you is that the files actually go to my external hard drive. So in Finder in a Mac or Windows Explorer on a Windows machine, you have your devices listed here, and I can click on my book, which is my external hard drive, and I can scroll all the way down here to the T's, which is where we made that test import folder, and there are my files. So you can see these were 5 that I originally imported, and that was to show you the duplicate, what happened when you clicked on don't import duplicates. But you can see here where they've been renamed, and the nice thing about Finder for Mac is that it actually does a preview of raw files, but you can see that all the files have been renamed, and it's the same ones here. So once I take my memory card out, I still have the images. They're on my hard drive. They're just stored right here. Depending on where you imported them, that's where your files will go, so that in the event that something terrible happens, you can just go back in here to the import dialog, go to your hard drive, which already has the photos on it, scroll all the way down to our test import, and you can see this is actually where your files get stored. Again, we already know that we have them in Lightroom, so we're not going to import duplicates, but if I uncheck that, I have the ability to go back in and import any that I have. So that is the import dialog in a nutshell. If you have any questions, feel free to drop by the forum or the Pretty Presets Facebook group and ask away.